From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Leading the news this week is the labor strike by the Union of Dock Workers that brought seaports all the way from Maine to Texas to a grinding halt. That included the Port of Mobile, where more than 900 workers there belong to the International Longshoremen's Association, the largest dock worker union in North America. In fact, it was the Port of Mobile's use of automation in cargo scanning that was specifically mentioned by the union's leadership as an impetus to the strike, because they fear greater automation will threaten jobs. However, late Thursday, the strike was suspended to allow work to resume and to allow negotiations toward a larger deal in January. So, workers at Alabama's port and throughout the country are back on the job. Alabama Port Authority Director John Driscoll had this to say when news of the deal broke. Quote, "Our economy depends on positive and productive relationships between corporations and the workers they rely on to serve their customers. While there is still more work to be done, this is an encouraging step in the right direction as USMX and the ILA work to finalize terms on a new contract. As I've said, a strike isn't good for anyone, from workers to consumers, our supply chain, and the economy as a whole. Getting the container terminals back to work is critical for all Americans, and the contract extension is a significant progress toward a permanent resolution that we are very happy to see." End quote. I'll be speaking with Mobile Chamber of Commerce President Bradley Byrne more about this issue later in the show. Alabama again finds itself defending the state against a lawsuit from the U.S. Department of Justice. This time, it's the Secretary of State's office being accused of violating the National Voter Registration Act. Back in August, Secretary of State Wes Allen announced that the state had found more than 3,000 voters who were listed as non-citizens according to the Department of Homeland Security. Those people were put on an inactive voter list and sent letters to allow the opportunity for them to affirm their legal status. Now, DOJ says that was against the law because it took place within 90 days of an election. Allen said he could not comment on the ongoing litigation, but said, quote, "I was elected Secretary of State by the people of Alabama, and it is my constitutional duty to ensure that only American citizens vote in our elections." We will certainly be following that story. Well, another feather in the cap for Alabama's automotive industry. Major supplier company Mobis has broken ground on a $52 million expansion project here in Montgomery. The new 460,000 square foot facility will support the parts needs for Hyundai and Kia, boosting local employment and solidifying Alabama's role in the auto sector.
And today's groundbreaking by Mobis Alabama is a testament to the strength of our region's workforce and infrastructure. This facility will serve the aftermarket parts needs of Hyundai and Kia across their national dealer networks. Two brands that are not only household names, but are also central to our region's economy. The significance of this expansion goes beyond job creation and financial investment. It reinforces the message that Montgomery is open for business.
Mobis is a world leader. They have incredible vision and innovation. So anytime that a company invests this amount of capital, it is incredibly increases our visibility in the automotive sector. So Mobis is an incredible partner. Over 20 years, this company has grown and invested and expanded in Montgomery and the state, and it shows tremendous faith in our state and our community.
It was debate week here in the capital city. Candidates for the nationally watched 2nd Congressional District race appeared on stage together for a debate hosted by the Montgomery Chamber of Commerce. Republican Caroline Dobson and Democrat Shamari Figures fielded questions about the economy, health care, the military, and several other topics. While there were disagreements over policy, there was also plenty of common ground between the candidates. For instance, on the issue of health care, both Dobson and Figures acknowledged the plight of those caught in the coverage gap and discussed ways that gap could be closed.
First and foremost, we have got to get our economy back on track. We have got to curb inflation. We've got to create jobs. We've got to get the government off our back. For hospitals to survive, for schools to flourish, we've got to have people in our rural communities.
The thing that I will do day one is walk down the hall to Congresswoman Terry Sewell's office and co-sponsor the Medicaid expansion bill to again open up the reimbursement period, or the reimbursement incentives rather, for the state of Alabama to do what 40 plus other states in America have already done, and that is expand health care here.
And on the military, both expressed strong support for Maxwell Air Force Base and talked about ways to bolster its position.
Whether or not I'm fortunate or not enough to end up on Armed Services Committee, I will be the biggest advocate, the biggest cheerleader for working with the Department of Defense to see what are the new programs on the horizon, what are those programs that are currently being implemented and run out of other military bases that where you are thinking of either expanding or relocating and would like to come to an environment that is used to actually facilitating that. I will be the biggest recruiter for that, to bring more of those instrumental programs.
There are two ways to support Maxwell. One is to ensure that we are supporting our military, keeping it growing and thriving, continuing to support programs like the War College here. But in order to retain Maxwell here and help it flourish, we also have to make sure that this district is one that's attractive for military spouses, that there are opportunities for military children.
That debate aired live on WSFA TV. If you'd like to watch it in its entirety, visit WSFA.com and you can find it there. Continuing with the 2nd District race, Figures this week rolled out the endorsement of a former opponent. House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels, who ran against Figures in the primary and took him to a runoff, officially endorsed the Democratic nominee this week.
While today I'm proud to endorse and throw my full support behind Shamari Figures for Congress, my expectation is that voters from not just Democrats, but independents and Republicans all join forces behind Mr. Figures. He's the most qualified candidate to take our district to the next level.
This election, for some, may just be a talking point. For some, it just may be another Democrat versus Republican battle. But in Bullitt County, it's about a hospital in Union Springs that just closed. In Clark County, it's about 2 hospitals we've seen close just in the last 60 days, including one just a couple weeks ago, or just last week rather. Right, in Monroe County, it's about that maternity services that are no longer there. In Crenshaw County, it's about the dialysis center that just closed a few weeks ago with very little notice. It's about the economic opportunities that are not present in a Conecuh County, or a Butler County, or a Macon County, or a Russell, or a Barber. It is too much at stake. This is not just another election.
And Dobson is touting a big endorsement of her own. Governor Kay Ivey has thrown her support behind the Republican nominee and recently lent her voice to a television ad highlighting the endorsement. Here's a snippet.
Caroline, running for office takes courage. You're standing tall for the issues that matter most to families and fighting to make their lives better. I know you'll work in Congress to bring better days ahead for all Alabamians.
Back in 2019, the legislature passed Governor Ivey's signature Rebuild Alabama gas tax and infrastructure plan. 5 years later, those dollars are still being used to update the state's road and bridge infrastructure. Capitol Journal's Randy Scott reports.
There's just not enough money in our normal budget to be able to maintain these roads the way the citizens expect us to.
Macon County engineer George Sims and his team have a big job keeping things rolling smoothly there. Some of their biggest tasks, keeping roads and bridges open for traffic. The money they have had for this isn't enough sometimes.
It doesn't go as far as it used to when you figure in inflation and the construction prices have increased.
Governor Kay Ivey just announced $3.1 million to fund road and bridge projects across Alabama as a part of the Rebuilding Alabama program. It's a part of the Rebuild Alabama Act, which the governor says, quote, improving Alabama's roads and bridges is a top priority, and I'm proud that we are continuing on this promise, unquote.
In 2019, the Alabama legislature approved or voted in the Rebuild Alabama Act, which is essentially a increase in the gas taxes.
Many voters were not happy when the gas tax measure passed in 2019. Skip to 2022. Macon County is awarded money from a program sponsored by that gas tax proposal to repair roads and bridges within its borders. Many say it's a program that is still needed today.
The state lawmakers were at least smart enough to include special passages in the law where the money is accounted for. We just can't spend it on whatever we want to. It is specifically in the law that we have to spend it on resurfacing roads or replacing bridges within the county.
Sims adds in 2022, Macon County was awarded some $1.1 million to work on County Road 18. He adds there are other projects needing work, and they'll try the process again.
Although we weren't selected this year, we'll turn around, we'll circle our wagons, and we'll start writing our grant application for next year and see if we can get another shot at a different road.
In Macon County, Randy Scott, Capital Journal.
Electric vehicles are becoming a more common sight on Alabama highways. I've seen a few of those Elon Musk Cybertrucks driving around the capital city myself. But some drivers are still hesitant to choose EVs due to concerns about driving range and practicality. This week, we take a closer look at how Alabama is emerging as a leader in electric vehicle adoption. And we'll hear from industry experts and everyday drivers about the benefits and challenges of making the EV switch. Capital Journal's Jeff Sanders has that story from Auburn.
More and more electric vehicles are becoming a common sight on Alabama highways.
The number of EVs that are registered in the state is skyrocketing.
Michael Staley is president of the Alabama Clean Fuels Coalition. He's also an EV owner.
So this is the 2024 model. It's the first edition.
Yeah.
And I got this August 1st, and I was told that I was the first person in Alabama to get the RST.
Staley unveiled his new electric ride at an EV showcase in Auburn.
The best person to learn about owning an EV from is someone who actually owns an EV. And so we have people that come out, they see the cars, they get to see all different kinds of models. You know, we have pickup trucks, sedans, luxury sports cars. We have all kinds of EVs out here. So whatever you like, you know, I have a pickup truck and it's a Silverado, and most people don't even think it looks like it's electric, but it is.
In recent months, EV sales have slowed nationwide, partly due to range anxiety, which has made many hesitant to switch from gas to electric. However, Staley points out that improved range in newer models, along with increased investments from both public and private sectors, is positioning Alabama as a national leader in EV adoption.
The state of Alabama has made 42 grants to businesses around the state, really in all directions on the major highways. You can now find a fast charger that will help if you go beyond the range of your car. But all the big places you stop when you're on a trip, they have fast chargers, and people are noticing that now. What we find is that people, they learn about EVs and they realize that it's really practical to own one, even here in Alabama.
One driver who made the switch is Alan Conradi. Like many EV owners we spoke with at the Auburn event, he highlights the significantly lower cost of charging his truck compared to filling it up with gas. However, he advises potential buyers to carefully consider their lifestyle before making the leap to electric.
Certainly, if you're a daily commuter that commutes a long distance and you don't have the ability to install a home charger, don't have a charger at work, it might make it tough. But for people who are like most folks, you don't drive more than 300 miles a day. So most people don't drive 50 miles in a day, you know. And then for long distances, you know, we have another vehicle we can drive for long distance if we wanted to, but we've also taken this one out of town and made some long distance trips in it and find it easy to navigate.
Automakers, including those with production facilities here in Alabama, are betting that as EV range and quality continue to improve, more Alabamians will make the switch to electric. Reporting from Auburn, I'm Jeff Sanders for Capital Journal.
Following up on some reporting we ran a few weeks back, Troy University Chancellor Jack Hawkins now says he will stay on the job and not retire next year as previously planned. You may remember we had Dr. Hawkins here on Capital Journal to talk about his plans to retire after 35 years at the helm at Troy. But the Board of Trustees got together and voted unanimously to ask Dr. Hawkins to reconsider his decision. Hawkins says he doesn't know how long he'll remain, but he wants to focus on expanding Troy to become a national research university with an R2 classification. He said it's a big idea, but a reachable one. Well, coming up after the break, I'll sit down with House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels to talk about that 2nd District race, that voter roll issue, and what might happen in the next legislative session. After that, I'm joined by Mobile Chamber of Commerce President Bradley Byrne for a discussion on the dock workers' strike situation. Later in the show, we have the newest member of our team here at APT. Education reporter Trish Crain sits down with me to talk about her new role, offering in-depth coverage of education issues. And last but not least, Erin Beasley of the Alabama Cattlemen's Association is here to promote Beef Month in the state of Alabama. And word is she brought some mouth-watering steaks along with her, so I hope you're hungry. Stay with us.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Representative Anthony Daniels, Minority Leader for the Alabama House of Representatives. Mr. Leader, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Todd.
It's been a while.
I know, man.
I know.
Too long.
I know. We're still some months out of session, so I'm sure you'll be on quite a bit. But you were in Montgomery this week endorsing your previous opponent in the Democratic primary, Shamari Figures, for Congress. We ran some of that video earlier. It's obviously a big deal, very close race. But you were a candidate in this race, came close. I'm curious how you see this race, because it should favor Democrats. Like the Cook's Political Report has it, leaning Democratic. But man, it seems close. What is your take on the political landscape of this brand new congressional district?
I think you're seeing a lot of voter apathy in general on both sides of the aisle, waiting for issues to be discussed in the 2nd Congressional District as to how each of the candidates will be able to deliver resources back to the district. Because understand that this district had representation in certain parts of the district that didn't believe in appropriations. And so those communities are really concerned about whether or not their member of Congress is going to continue the same trend of them not getting anything, or are they going to have a member of Congress that's going to support appropriating back to the local communities? And that's what I think that Shamari Figures brings to the table. He talked about having relationships with the various agencies, understanding the inner working of the agencies, and he will be able to communicate effectively and bring bacon to Macon and everywhere else in the district.
Yeah, and you're talking about earmarks, because that's right. And in my time in D.C., there was kind of a moratorium on earmarks. They came back, but yeah, you're right. The previous congressman, or I guess the current, really kind of said no to those kind of things, and they are important. So that's interesting, very specifically on the earmark thing. You brought up something in the press conference that really caught my attention. You said that your wife had been put on an inactive voter roll list. Can you explain that in more detail?
Well, we were voting in the municipal elections in the Huntsville area in August. And when she got to the polls, they told her that she was inactive, basically. And so she got a provisional ballot and voted from the provisional ballot. And so we further investigated this and called the Secretary of State's office, and they mentioned that it states that the card was returned. And so for me, it's very interesting that we've been receiving mail in this house for 2 years, and a card was returned, indicating as if she doesn't live in that particular in our house. And so it was very frustrating to me because we actually updated our registration at the same time. And so I'm not certain as to how that happened, which tells me that there are a lot of other voters out there that should be checking their registration status to make certain that they're actually registered and they're on the active list. And if you're on the inactive list, you need to be able to reach out to your local registrars in the Secretary of State's office to make certain that they're communicating with each other in the systems that they have. The internal system, I know that Secretary of State's, they have their own internal system that they were developing, that they develop, and so want to make certain that we're not missing any opportunities for voters to be kicked off a list that they should already be on.
Did you think it was kind of related to this voter purge thing that, I mean, the Department of Justice is suing, or is it, you think it's unrelated to that?
I'm not sure. I'm not certain as to whether the connection there. We did get it resolved. She was able to vote in the runoff and made certain that her vote was counted. But it's just unfortunate that we've taken the time to update the registration and to our new home, and it was, one person in the house was able to vote and the other person was not able to vote and not be on the active list.
Yeah. We did reach out to Secretary of State Wes Allen's office. He couldn't make it on the show, but they did offer this statement. The Board of Registrars in each of Alabama's 67 counties are responsible for updating and evaluating the statuses of Alabama's registered voters. Generally, individuals are placed in an inactive status if a mailing from the registrar's office is returned undeliverable. Let's switch gears. I want to ask you about the upcoming session. We've still got about 5 months until February when the legislative session begins. I know conversations start way in advance about what kind of issues, what kind of policies y'all want to be pursuing. So what about the House Democratic Caucus? What issues are y'all talking about, maybe you want to bring up in February when the legislature convenes?
And so it's a twofold question. For us, there are issues that didn't quite make it across the finish line in the Senate this previous session, two of them, one of which is the gaming legislation. The other one was the Glock switch that successfully passed the House of Representatives but did not make it through the process in the Senate. And so in essence, we're waiting for the Senate to kind of have discussions in the Senate about what their desires are going to be in the upcoming session to address both of those issues. And so once we hear from the Senate to see, we'll be able to determine, how much noise we'll be making around the issue. There are other issues that are important. Of course, healthcare is always important. When you see communities like in Monroe County, where a female that's expecting a child, expecting mother, have to drive 90 miles one way and 100 miles the other way to have a baby, that issue must be addressed. In Thomasville, Alabama, we're seeing the issues there. In Bullock County, where they had to lay off 90 individuals from the hospital, that really kills your town. Think about those individuals making really decent salaries at the hospital. Think about your downtown restaurants. Think about your grocery stores. Think about all of the restaurants and other small businesses in that town and how it impacted them. And so we got to understand that whenever you lose a hospital in a community that's providing the care, imagine what that's going to do for someone that has a car accident or have some type of health concern that's within that town. And so it's just really concerning to me, and this is happening all across the district. And so, of course, Medicaid expansion is one of the issues that we'll be pushing. We're hopeful that there is a conversation about the public-private partnership. We had discussions about it last year, and so hopefully that's something that we'll be able to address in the upcoming session, but also address funding for a lot of these communities that are experiencing higher than normal gun violence. Figuring out ways to play offense and defense on that. Giving local law enforcement the ability to be able to put these, as they're doing in Montgomery, putting together a multi-level task force. That may be something that needs to be implemented around the state of Alabama under the direction of working collaboratively with the state and also the federal level, because we know that the Glock switches are banned federally, but for some reason, from a state perspective, we failed to get there. And so let's utilize the other resources that we have to address some of these issues, but also behavior. What can we do? What's going on in these communities? Is there after-school programs? Are there summer programs? What are we doing to occupy the minds and increasing the learning and availability of learning and resources to young people in these communities? Because a lot of the violence that you're seeing are basically, they're mostly teenagers. And so why does teenagers how do they have enough time to be able to purchase a gun, but also operate a weapon in that community? And so we have to focus on the side of getting some of these weapons off the street, but what are we doing to play offense and making certain that we're keeping them occupied where their minds are absorbing and learning, and they're doing apprenticeship programs, that they're getting workforce training, doing things to help them understand the importance of life and the value of life, and what they realizing their potential.
Getting at the root cause, really.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. But I think it has to be a multi-level approach, and it's not just in isolation. But it has to be done in more of a comprehensive way, but we can't keep talking about it. That's what we can't do.
It's interesting you bring that up, because there's no one magic bullet. There's probably a bad pun there. Yeah. There's no one solution. It's multifaceted. Let me ask you about one of the bills you sponsored. It was wildly popular, the overtime income tax cut that passed. I think it was unanimous. At least it was in the House. Been taken advantage of by workers all across the state, to the point where more revenue than we expected, was not coming into the Education Trust Fund. That law is going to sunset, right, next year, I think. So the legislature would have to actively reinstate that law. What are you hearing? Do you think that's going to happen? Or because of those revenue, there are concerns about, hey, this is costing the state a ton of revenue. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, here's what's happening. When hourly workers are getting more money back in their paychecks, they're spending more money. And so this is the only tax cut that's actually bringing income in for local communities, for cities, counties, and the state. This is the only one that yield returns. And so until those that are out there, that those naysayers that say it's costing us too much money, well, it's occupying a void. We have an issue with the workforce in the state of Alabama, workforce participation. But if I have employees that's in a manufacturer and I have to get a certain amount of product out in order to keep the prices at a normal level, then I have to use experienced workforce. If I can't find employees, I have to use my experienced workforce to work a little extra. If they want to work a little extra, make a little more money in their pocket, it's an incentive for them to work more, but they're reaping the benefits financially. And so they're also putting money back into the economy. And so for those individuals that are out there that are saying that it's costing the state a lot of money, we can't afford not to extend it. And let's look at other things. I can go down the list of things that are not yield the return that we're spending money on. Let's evaluate everything. Are these other areas yielding the returns that we need?
You think about like tax credits and things like that?
Well, regardless of what it is, right? And so there are a lot of things that are coming out of both budgets that we're funding that we're clearly seeing that we haven't asked for an ROI. What is it doing? How is it? Let's start having a conversation about those things as well. And there are things that we've implemented, like the grocery tax, which I'm very supportive of. That when those hourly workers spend money and then there's 1 cent already off, it costs $300 million, and so that's a $300 million hole in the budget. Where if the prices have increased, then you're really not saving anything. It's just a talking point. Well,
let me ask you about the grocery tax, because we're almost out of time, but you brought it up. That's another one that, 4% is the state tax on all, sales tax, but on groceries. So they took off 1 cent, and it's kind of a stair step, but there's talk of revisiting that law so that we can eventually get to that full 4%, cut on grocery sales taxes. What have you heard about that? Do you think the legislature can do that? Because there's concern about revenue there too.
Absolutely. I think that it's a double-edged sword now that we're seeing the costs that 1 cent has when local municipalities cannot afford to remove the local taxes because it'll basically really kill their budgets and the revenue. Then they depend on it. And so if you're not seeing that energy matched at the local level, let's have a real conversation about what type of impact, what will be the taxes taken off for overtime, for working class people that's spending money. How is that helping them? And so we just got to evaluate the effectiveness of it and be realistic about the financial hit. And so for me, I'm all for eliminating the income tax on groceries, but I know that there are other pieces of legislation that could fill that void. The gaming legislation could fill that void. Sports betting can fill that void. Other things that we can be really creative about can fill that hole where we're taking the taxes off groceries. But at the end of the day, Todd, one of the things I will say, if there's been an increase at the grocery store, then have we actually saved Alabamians money?
Just because inflation and all those kind of things.
Exactly. We should be focusing on reducing the costs at the grocery stores, in the convenience stores, right? How do we focus on the supply chain aspect of this? Because if the prices continue to increase, the 1 cent, yeah, it'll be better long term, but what will be more effective? Controlling the price, getting a way to get the prices back to the levels, the pre-2020 levels, or 1 cent? Well, getting the prices down will provide more for a family than just removing 1 cent here, 1 cent there. So let's prioritize. We can end up doing both, but if we have to pass something that generates enough revenue for us to be able to have these realistic conversations and make them a reality.
Lots of issues to watch as February approaches. It'll be here before we know it. So I really appreciate it, Mr. Leader. Thanks for coming in. Look forward to having you back when the session starts.
Well, thank you, man. I'll always look forward to talking to you.
All right. We'll be right back.
You're watching Alabama Public Television.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. As we reported earlier, the International Longshoremen's Association, the largest union of maritime workers in North America, went on strike earlier this week. That included about 900 workers at the Port of Mobile. But a tentative agreement has been reached with the U.S. Maritime Alliance to suspend the strike until January to allow time for a longer-term agreement to be negotiated. Joining me next to talk about this is Bradley Byrne, president of the Mobile Chamber of Commerce. Bradley, thanks for taking the time.
Great to be with you, Todd.
I know it has been an eventful week for Mobile, just considering the strike and the impact it could have had on the port. Let me just ask you, is everybody kind of breathing a sigh of relief today, at least temporarily?
Yeah, well, I think we all feel like we've dodged a bullet. We were shut down for a couple of days, and even that's not good. But to open up so quickly is actually a very good thing for everybody. Unfortunately, even when you open back up again, and there's always a backlog. So we're going to have a couple of weeks here where we're working out the backlog we've created just in the couple of days we were shut down this week.
Wow, okay. Well, one of the primary concerns the union is expressing is automation. Basically, the emerging technology, robotics being more and more involved at ports, loading and unloading of ships, probably a lot more than that, and how that automation might threaten those dock working jobs. What has been the response to the union's concerns?
Well, first of all, they're talking about a particular gate at the port where they have cameras that take the pictures of the identifying numbers on the trucks and on the containers. And it used to be that those workers would stand out there in the line to those trucks and those trailers to write it down on a clipboard. Well, what these cameras do is they allow the workers to be inside in a temperature-controlled environment and not in that line of traffic where it's frankly unsafe. So this is an instance where the technology actually benefits the workers. There's a myth out there that somehow that technology destroys jobs. Technology actually creates new jobs. So I think this is a red herring. Name me one industry anywhere in the world that's not trying to get more automated and more efficient. And shipping's got to be a part of that. If they're going to raise their price by this much, they've got to prove some more efficiencies with that.
Well, I know it's early, but what are you hearing about the prospects of a larger deal between the alliance and the unions come January?
Well, the principal point of negotiation at this point is the automation issue, but I'm confident they'll work that out. So I think we'll be okay in January. What we've got to be concerned about going forward is, are we making agreements now that make our port less competitive? We've become a very competitive port. We're the fastest growing container port in the country right now. We don't need to be doing anything that's going to make us less competitive, particularly as we begin to deepen and widen our ship channel, which will be completed next March, which will make us even more attractive as a place for people to ship in and out of.
Right. You mentioned the channel. I mean, everybody's been really excited about that. It's just really an exciting time for the port. And it has such a huge impact, not just there in Mobile, but throughout Alabama and the Southeast. So, I mean, you just experienced a couple of days of a work stoppage. What would a longer term work stoppage actually look like? How would it impact Alabamians?
It'd be devastating. It would affect obviously all the port jobs directly, but you got a lot of businesses here and all over the state that are tied to the port, and it would definitely disrupt them. But for the average consumer, it would be terrible. I mean, you wouldn't find a lot of the stuff you'd normally expect to find on the shelves at Walmart or Home Depot. You wouldn't be able to get certain parts for your car at an auto parts store. We don't grow any bananas or coffee in the United States. You wouldn't be able to get any bananas or coffee. I know it seems like humdrum stuff, but this is how we all live, and we've got to keep this system open.
Do you think maybe this strike has maybe broadened the awareness of just how important our port is, not just ours, but how important shipping is in an unexpected way, kind of raised awareness throughout the country and maybe the state about just how much we rely on the Port of Mobile?
Yeah, we all got transported back to COVID when we had all the problems with them getting stuff into the West Coast ports. Well, we just got ourselves back into that same frame of mind. People were taking a lot of toilet paper out of the grocery stores because they were panicking. And I understand that. I really do. Hopefully we understand going forward every day that this trade system, this system of getting things in and out of our port is very, very, very vital to our everyday existence.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, while I have you, I have to ask you about this upcoming election. You, of course, served in Congress, and now, after redistricting, there are now 2 congressional districts reaching into Mobile. I'm curious, what has been your message as the chamber president to these candidates in terms of prioritizing Mobile and all that is going on down there?
Well, we spent a lot of time, the chamber spent a lot of time with both of these candidates, letting them know what's going on down here, what in Washington is important to us, how they can be an advocate for us. And I've been very pleased with the response of both of these candidates. They've been very attentive. They are all over the place down here, by the way. I saw Mr. Figures last night at a function. And we're just pleased that they're paying so much attention to what we've got down here, paying attention to us in general. We've got a debate coming up here at the chamber that will be televised at the end of October. We're going to ask them a whole bunch of substantive questions. We're not trying to play gotcha with these debates. But I've been very pleased with their response. And I think whichever one of those candidates win is going to do a good job of taking care of us down here.
Well, you certainly know how important that is from all the years you served in Congress. We're out of time. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain some of these issues. Look forward to seeing you in Mobile soon.
Same here, Todd. Good to be with you.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is Trish Crain, who we can now announce is now the senior education reporter here at Alabama Public Television. Trish, welcome and congrats.
Wow, thank you, Todd. I really appreciate this. This is just not a spot I ever thought I would find myself in. It's quite a privilege. Thank you.
Well, we're excited too, and of course, this is in partnership with Alabama Daily News, kind of a dual role, bringing a lot of resources to bear for education reporting in Alabama. You have been the premier education reporter in Alabama, really changed the game in terms of how all that has gone. So can you kind of walk me through your background and really how you got to this point? Because it is kind of an interesting background.
It is an interesting journey. Again, I did not think I would ever find myself here. I really began, I was writing about education from sort of a parent's view. I had a lot of concerns about things that were happening at my children's school. I have 3 children, all grown now, and I wasn't sure who to ask the questions to. And so I just kept asking I kind of, didn't want to give up. I needed some answers. Why were some kids achieving better than others? So that kind of led me into a nonprofit organization, creating one for Hoover, which is where my children were, which then led to the Alabama School Connection, which was a website and ultimately a nonprofit news organization where I, it really started as a way of covering what was happening here in Montgomery, like what bills are they passing. I found that teachers and parents were often the last to know. And so I kind of wanted, parents were asking, how do we figure this out? So I basically monitored Allison, the website, and tried to put up information about what was happening. That then led me to AL.com. In 2016, I joined AL.com and had a great experience there, great colleagues. We started Alabama Education Lab, which continues.
Right.
And wow, I don't know how I got here sometimes, Todd.
Well, we're glad you did, and it just speaks to the work that you were doing. Again, in that nonprofit space, that it was so important that Alabama's largest media outlet, AL.com, brought you on board to build that education lab, and so we're grateful. Alabama Public Television does so much in the education space that we, don't tout enough sometimes on here, and so we're looking forward to having you as a part of that. Brianna Morton, who is our vice president.
Yes.
There with education. Lots going on, and so to bring that reporting to bear is really important too, because it's not just here on Capital Journal. We certainly want your reporting here on Capital Journal, but Spotlight on Education. We just got finished with an episode, and I kept thinking, man, I wish Trish was already on board because you bring a lot of quality. Well, let's talk about that. What types of stories do you hope to be reporting on? Both for ADN and APT.
Well, folks who know me know that I'm kind of a data nerd and I'm kind of a policy person and procedure. I like reporting on what's happening as it's happening and not wait until the decision is made, and say, hey, here's what they did. So there are a lot of issues, a lot of big things on the horizon for education. At K-12, that's what I've spent most of my time on, but also community colleges. Alabama's community colleges are seeing enrollment increase. That is not what's happening nationally. We have universities here, right? We need to know, how are they contributing to our future as Alabamians, which is what I kind of see education as doing, right? Like we go through all of this education and then we need to give back, right? We need to be productive members of society while still being able to make choices. I think choices are important. So, hey, school choice, that's big. The CHOOSE Act starts next year, bringing education savings accounts, which, colloquially are referred to as vouchers. That's going to be big.
Absolutely.
Who's using them? Where are they going? Which private schools take them? Are homeschoolers using them? Lots of questions about that. We have the new school funding formula perhaps on the horizon.
Big deal.
Big deal. Something that I have been hearing about for 4 or 5 years now and just waiting for this moment, to start talking about what would it really do for kids? What would it really do for, equipping classrooms with what they really need to help kids with challenges. Some kids have more challenges than others, to help them learn and be productive members of society. I think one of the things, the Governor's Turnaround Schools initiative, I am really interested in that. I think if they can get this right, and they have 4 state agencies at the table helping 15 schools, because school is more than just what happens inside the school building, right?
Well, certainly.
Families, communities, what kind of opportunities are available for kids when they get out of school. That's going to be huge. I'm really looking forward to diving into that. And always, how does education connect to the workforce? I think for a long time, and our state superintendent of education said this when he first came to the position in 2018. He said, we've kind of been siloed. K-12 was doing its thing and higher ed was doing its thing, but I know Governor Ivey has done a lot to try to bring the two together to say it should be seamless, right? So there's a lot to look into.
Absolutely. I do think there's more interest in collaborating and making that seamless than really ever before. You saw that with all those workforce development bills that passed this last time around. They want to hear from business. They want to hear, align the curriculum to be correct, really engaging career tech and how that's being implemented even in junior high and high school and things like that. So there's a lot going on there. And you're right, education touches really every part of our lives. It is really the biggest thing that happens here in Montgomery in terms of the legislature, if only big means amount of dollars, right? Education trust fund. So, and it's been interesting for me since I've been back, since I started back in 2018, to see a renewed focus on instruction and improvement. I guess you could kind of go back to the Literacy Act, and you had the Numeracy Act, where you saw state lawmakers maybe more engaged than I remember previous legislators being. And so that's interesting. So I'm looking forward to you tracking that progress as it goes forward.
Thank you. Yes, I am too. You mentioned career tech. I think Alabamians have sort of been under this impression that career tech is not a thing. Career tech is very much a thing. And as you say, it goes all the way down to middle school now. Kids are talking about what do they want to be when they grow up. And does every sixth grader know that? No. But that can lead children to opportunities, and then they can understand, yes, it's going to take this for me to get that. I mean, the easy one to say is a medical doctor, right? You've got a lot of school ahead of you if you want to be a medical doctor, but you need to understand biology. You need to understand, you need to be able to do math. There are a lot of things there. So, and I've seen just tons of interest in career tech with we've just come off of a 3-4 year period of more federal money than we've ever had thrown at our K-12 schools. Higher ed got some of that too. And with a lot of that K-12 money and with the Lieutenant Governor's Capital Grant Program, a lot of that money's been invested in career tech, to let children see what could we do if we don't really feel like going to college right now, either community college or a 4-year. They're just, the options are endless, and I am looking forward to seeing that, tracking that as it gets more and more available.
Absolutely. Plenty of opportunities out there. I do feel like so much is happening on the education front in Alabama. So I'm really tickled that you're now on board as part of the team, and folks can look forward to your coverage here on Capital Journal, but especially on Spotlight for Education, which we just want to keep growing and improving, and so we're looking forward to that. Trish, we're out of time, but again, welcome, congratulations, and can't wait to work with you.
Thank you so much, Todd.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. October is Beef Month in the state of Alabama. And joining me to talk about it is Erin Beasley of the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Erin, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Todd.
And thanks for bringing your beef.
Well, we try not to go and travel without beef in hand, so it's everyone's favorite protein.
Absolutely. Well, I just remember all whether it's a bill signing or a proclamation with everybody, some of your members in the red jackets, the cowboy hats, and absolutely a platter of beef. So we are honored to have you here. Before we get into it, can you talk about the Cattlemen's Association and its role here in the state?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the Alabama Cattlemen's Association, it was formed in 1944. We're a trade organization that represents beef cattle producers across the state. We represent over 10,000 members annually across all 67 counties. There are cattle in all 67 counties. And so our impact is, we have a lot of different arms, but from a membership perspective, our goal is to advocate on behalf of our members, whether that be through legislative policy, through watching over regulatory burdens, and just working to ensure that they can operate in a free market and be able to, raise cattle and do so in a manner that's going to make them profitable and be able to, be successful in the industry. We also do a lot of beef promotion, a lot of promotion of our industry. One thing about our consumers is that they are eager and they have a lot of knowledge to gain from learning about our product. And so a big part of what we do is using our promotion dollars through a program called the Beef Checkoff Program. And so the secondary arm of our organization is really working to try to promote beef, educate consumers about beef, and really just promote the cattle industry as a whole. We also have a foundation that's very successful in giving out scholarships annually. We do about $100,000 annually in scholarships, and so the association as a whole is very diverse in that it touches a lot of different people, but our main role is really to advocate on behalf of our members.
And I'm guessing Beef Month is a prime time to do that, pardon the pun, but so how did Beef Month come about and here in the state of Alabama, right?
Yeah. So we were one of the first. First, we were one of the first states to have this beef checkoff program, which is to promote our product. And we had just some incredible forefathers that were a part of the organization early on. And the ideas that they had, as a person in 2024 looking back at that, you just go, where did they get just these awesome ideas? And so one of those was the idea, let's use these promotion dollars. At that time, there was just a lot of cattle in the market. It was kind of flooded in the market, and they needed to move that product because prices were depressed. And so in 1964, the idea came about. They said, you know what, let's dedicate an entire month to promoting the product and move it off the shelf and get the consumers buying it. And so they did that. And the results were just remarkable. And so since 1964, Governor Wallace was the first governor to proclaim that October was Beef Month. And at that time, we were the first state to do such a thing. And so it was picked up by national media at the time, trade publications and such. And from that, a lot of states started doing it. And now there's actually a National Beef Month in May. But given that we were the first to come up with it, we have always stuck with October Beef Month. It's a great time in our state to be able to, put the efforts towards it and the dollars towards it, and just really work both at the state level and down in our county organizations to promote the beef cattle industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. That is quite a bit of foresight
in
terms of something that has stuck around all this long. Well, what kind of things can we expect from Beef Month? Y'all have some planned activities?
Yeah, this morning actually, before I came over here, we have a history book that was written, and I was reading back through just to kind of refresh my memory on what some of those early activities were in the early 60s when this all started. And, it was all about, billboards and, printed recipes and state, county fairs, a state fair, just all these activities. And while Beef Month itself has changed a lot with what we're going to be doing, some of those dynamics are still in play. So you can expect to see, maybe instead of the print advertising, you're going to see a really heavy digital advertising presence, and we all know the importance of that in reaching our consumers today. So really heavy on the digital, a lot of events. And so, for example, this weekend we'll have a large setup at Talladega. So that's something that's really important to a lot of Alabamians, and there's a lot of other events throughout the month that will be set up at promoting the beef cattle industry. One promotion, so this year is 60 years of celebrating October Beef Month, and a contest. I don't know if you've heard about it, Todd, but for the past 10 years, we've done some type of Bama's Best Steak, Bama's Best Burger, Bama's Best Beef. We've done all these contest promotions, and what it's allowed us to do is identify a lot of just really great independent restaurants in the state that do a jam-up job with beef dishes. And so in honor of 60 years of Savor, we decided to kind of compile all those. And so we actually have a promotion, it's 60 Savory Stops. And so you can go on our Facebook page, that is out, it's on our website, and you can see 60 different restaurants in this state that just have an awesome beef dish to offer. And so if you're a consumer that says, you know what, I want to hit the trail this month and hit a few of those, you can definitely find some great steak restaurants and beef restaurants to visit. Also, we would be remiss if we didn't mention our county organizations. So we mentioned there are beef cattle in all 67 counties. And so our county cattlemen's groups, they really get into Beef Month as well. They will be very involved with a lot of their county fairs that are going on. They raise money through doing things like steak sandwich sales so that they can do scholarships for kids in their county. So we see a lot of that, and just a lot of educational opportunities. So we'll have them reading books about the cattle industry in classrooms. That's a great way for us to connect with young people, and just teaching kids where their beef comes from. That's a that's a big barrier that we have. You're probably familiar. We have the museum right
Oh,
down
yeah.
the way here. It's visited a lot, but so our county groups really do a great job of really extending that message and having that grassroots effort. So there will be a lot going on, but anything that you want to learn about, just follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or you can check out the website and see all those activities.
Absolutely. We'll have to throw some of those links up.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get into this savory dishes.
Savory stops? Okay.
Savory stops. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing I like more than steak in a restaurant. And I heard that it's Restaurant Week in Montgomery.
Okay.
And I heard Frenchie's has a beef Wellington.
Oh.
It's a tough dish to cook and very savory. So, look, this is great. Thank you so much for coming on and educating us about Beef Month, the impact of the cattlemen's industry in Alabama, and good luck. We'll be savoring away at the steak this month.
We appreciate it. Take these T-bones home. You can throw them on the grill, get you a steak to eat to kick off Beef Month. I mean, we're here and we're ready to go.
Absolutely. We'll share it as a crew. Erin, thanks again.
Thanks, Todd.
We'll be right back.
Originally designated as a postal route in 1806, the old federal road stretched through the Creek Indian Territory of Lower Alabama. Alabama's Federal Road functioned as a major thoroughfare for western migration into the Old Southwest, ushering in a new era of national expansion and exploitation of Native American territory. Although much of the Federal Road has disappeared, portions of it remain today.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week at the same time, right here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.